No one waits at Dawnfall Ridge, not anymore. They stand back, clustered near the dry well, boots sunk ankle-deep in dust that hasn't seen rain since your boy was born. You count 12 faces, 13 if you count the preacher's shadow, long and trembling against the boulder where he props his holy book like a shield. But no one looks at you, not directly, not even the one who once called you sister. Your wrists are bound, but you walk upright, slow, steady, eyes forward. There's a hush to this morning, like the canyon knows something no one else does, like it's holding its breath. They said it'd be quick, clean. The law was passed, the charges spoken. You were given a night in the church cellar to make peace with God. But your peace was never in a building. It came in wind, in buffalo breath, in the hum of lullabies sung low over a newborn heartbeat. So now, with rope coiled loose in the deputy's hand and the cottonwood above, creaking like an old lung, you walk one step at a time toward the place where they say justice lives. But justice never smelled this much like old sweat and pine pitch. You glance once toward the ridge. No rider, no sign. Not that you expected one. You told him not to come. Not when they found the child gone. Not when the sheriff knocked on your cabin door with eyes too kind to hide the noose behind his coat. You told him, ride north. He'll be safer. You know the mountains better than they ever will. And he listened. Of course he did. He always listened. He was the first one who ever did. The preacher starts reading now. Verses. Parchment-thin pages flapping in the wind like they're trying to escape the weight of what's written on them. You don't hear the words, not really. Your mind's gone backward, to the night for fire when you first stitched the baby's name into deer hide. The way he held the edge of the blanket while you worked, watching with those patient eyes, like he was memorizing every thread. You named the boy something that could travel. A name that held both your father's defiance and his mother's river-breath wisdom. A name that didn't belong to just one tongue. They didn't ask what it meant. They only asked where it came from. And when you told them, when you spoke his name out loud and said that it came from a Comanche's lips in your womb, they looked at you like you'd swallowed sin. And now here you are, at Dawnfall Ridge. The deputy climbs onto the stump. You smell pine sap. The noose sways, someone coughs, and the preacher stops reading. He nods once. The deputy motions, the rope's thrown over the limb. Your knees don't shake. You think of your baby, of the humming he loved more than milk, of the stone you carved his name into at the river bend. Not a grave, but a hiding place. So if they ever came looking, they'd find nothing but your silence and the water's promise. If stories like this help you breathe easier, you know where to find more. Let me know what time it is where you are. And if you're listening alone, you're not. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let the story come to you. The deputy tightens the rope. The cottonwood groans, and just as the wind stills, you hear it. Not a voice, not a prayer, a cry, sharp, small, alive. Your head jerks. Everyone turns, even the preacher, because that wasn't the wind, that was a baby. And it's coming from the ridge. The cry doesn't stop. It echoes too high and too real to be imagined. You've heard wind whistle through canyon teeth, and you've heard coyotes call in mourning. This is neither. This is the sound a child makes when it's cold, confused, alive. Your knees buckle, but not from fear. Hope shakes worse than any rope. Someone in the crowd murmurs. The preacher lowers his book. The deputy shifts, one hand still clutching the noose's loose end. He squints toward the ridge, but the rising sun behind it makes it hard to see. The cry again, closer now. And you, bound, condemned, feel something rise in your chest that you haven't felt since the child was taken from you. A memory dressed in wool and breath. You remember the moment you placed him in the stranger's arms, wrapped in deer hide. A feather tucked into the folds, no goodbye, just a whisper. Ride east, don't stop, don't look back. You hadn't known if your son would survive, but you'd known what would kill him if he stayed. They'd found your bloodied sheets before the cord was even cut. No one asked why you labored in secret. They only asked one thing. Whose child is it? And when they saw the edge of red thread along the cradle quilt, when they saw the stone beads you wore stitched into your collar, the verdict was sealed. The town would not let its future be written in two tongues, not when one of them was Comanche. The cry pierces again, then hooves, heavy. Sure, the crowd parts before they see him, because they already know. No settler rides with that posture, that quiet power. That stillness in the saddle, like he's carrying sky instead of weight. He rides bareback, no reins, just trust. The baby's bundle is cradled against his chest, strapped with hide and crisscrossed with red stitching. You gasp, because you know those stitches. You made them. Your fingers made them in the dark, in silence, in prayer. The horse slows as it reaches the base of the ridge, and there, beneath a gallows tree, he stops. Every eye is on him. No one moves. Not even Rusty Moulton, who once bragged about shooting 6 Comanche in one night. Not even Sheriff Voss, who spent a year laying track through Kiowa land and came back with a scar he never speaks of. The rider dismounts, still no words. He walks forward one slow step at a time until he's standing not 10 feet from where you're bound. The baby stirs in the bundle, then cries again. This time, the sound isn't sharp. It's soft, searching. He kneels, unwraps the top layer of hide, lifts the child into the light, and speaks your son's name, not in English, not in Comanche, in both. A braid of sound, a declaration, you break. Not loud, just one breath pulled too deep. The preacher's hand trembles. The deputy doesn't look at you. He stares at the child. The baby's eyes flutter open, and for the first time in weeks, you see the curve of your own cheek in another's face. Your baby, your boy, alive, held in the arms of the man you once saved, and who now saves you. You look at him, and he looks back, still no words, but everything is said. You nod, and the wind returns, curling through the cottonwood like a ribbon, lifting the hem of your dress, fluttering the rope. The baby lets out a hiccup of breath and settles. The Comanche man steps forward, places the child gently into the arms of the preacher. His hands don't shake, his eyes never lower. Then he speaks, quiet and clear. She gave me life once, now I return it. The preacher stares down at the child in his arms. Red thread, stone bead, tiny fist curled around a lock of your hair. And the baby says nothing, just blinks up at the sky like it belongs to him. The rope in the deputy's hand slips loose, falls to the dirt. No one tells him to drop it. He just does. You sag with the weight of breath. A mother again. Not condemned, not silenced. Seen. The baby fusses. You smile. The wind shifts. And for the first time since this land was carved from treaty and blood, a mother stands tall under a tree meant for death, reborn by the voice of a child. The baby is passed to you like he's made of something sacred. The preacher's arms stiffen as he lifts him toward you, and for a moment you wonder if he'll pull back, but he doesn't. His hands tremble. His mouth parts like he wants to say something, maybe an apology, maybe a warning, but no words come, just a breath. Then he lets go. You gather your son into your arms. He's heavier than you remember, not by weight, by presence. Alive, warm, threaded with your scent and someone else's survival. The buffalo hide wrap still holds the smell of smoke and pine. You lift it slightly and press your nose to the crown of his head. There it is, the one thing they could never strip from you. His scent. Proof of life, of blood, of mercy given and returned. The baby curls into your chest like he remembers, like he never left. Someone coughs. Boots shift in the dirt. A child somewhere behind the crowd begins to cry. And then, nothing. Silence thicker than judgment. You hold your baby closer. You want to speak, to name him aloud again, this time without shame, but your throat closes up. So instead, you look to the man who brought him. He stands just beyond the rope's shadow, still as carved stone, eyes locked not on you, but on the preacher, then the sheriff, then the crowd, daring them, daring anyone to try and finish what they started, No one moves, no one speaks. Because deep down, even the worst of them knows this isn't how stories are meant to end. And this man, the one they once called enemy, just gave them a chance to rewrite it. The sheriff steps forward, slowly, hat in hand. His face is worn like river rock, shaped by time, but unreadable. He looks at you, then at the baby, then at the noose still swaying behind you. He says, "Law said death." A pause. But the law never met his eyes. The wind picks up. The noose spins once, then stills. He turns to the deputy. "Cut her down." You don't flinch as the man steps up behind you and slices the rope at your wrists. You feel it fall, stiff from dried sweat and fear. Your arms drop to your sides. They ache. But they're yours again. You shift the baby's weight. He gurgles, then quiets. The sheriff nods once, walks back into the crowd. Nothing more. The rope stays where it fell. No one picks it up. No one dares. You look back to the man. He's still watching. Not you, your son, and in his face, you see what he doesn't say, what he never will, the nights he rode with the child strapped close, singing wind songs to keep the wolves from circling. The mornings he lit fires in dry creek beds, warmed milk from borrowed goats, stitched your name in thread he tore from his own coat. You see it all, you feel it in your bones, the way love leaves its marks, quiet, invisible, permanent. You take a step forward, then another. He doesn't move, so you speak first. "I told you not to come." He nods. "You did." You smile. "He always cry that loud?" He chuckles once. "Only when it mattered." You both look at the child, and for a moment the ridge doesn't feel like a place of judgment. It feels like a beginning. You step closer, brush the edge of the buffalo wrap. Your fingers graze his. He doesn't pull away. "And neither do you." You whisper, "He remembered my voice." He replies, "He hummed in his sleep. Same melody." Your throat catches. You shift the baby, and something slips from the wrap. A scrap of cloth, frayed, embroidered, the edge of the cradle quilt, the one they never found. He lifts it gently, folds it, and places it in your hand. "I kept it close." You nod, unable to speak. Not yet. Not until the trembling in your chest finds stillness again. He doesn't press. He never did. You whisper, "What happens now?" He glances at the crowd, then the canyon, then the baby, then you, and says, "Whatever we choose." The baby stirs again. His hand opens, reaches up, grabs a lock of your hair, and holds on. You don't look back when you leave Dawnfall Ridge. Let them keep the rope. Let them keep their silence. You carry what matters. The baby sleeps against your chest, one fist still tangled in your hair. His breath is steady, like he's always known how to find sleep on a moving horse. The man rides beside you. Neither of you speaks for the first hour. The canyon opens wide as you descend, the path narrowing, then flattening into scrubland. Juniper, dust, dry grass, wind. The world returns to itself. No more eyes, no more glares. Just the quiet rhythm of hooves and the sound of things surviving. You let the rhythm carry you. Let your hands learn him again, this child who left as a bundle and returned as a weight with history behind his eyes. You wonder what he saw, what he heard, what his small heart carried while yours broke. You think of the lullaby he hummed in his sleep. He must have clung to that tune like a trail rope in a storm. The same one you used to hum while sewing, the one your mother called a thread stronger than silence. The man ahead slows. You follow without question. He stops beside a narrow arroyo, dry and now but still shaded, a perfect place to rest. He dismounts. You do the same. Your knees don't want to hold you, but you manage. The baby wakes, blinks, then coos. It's a sound so normal, so gentle, that you nearly drop to your knees and sob, but instead you smile. You sit on a flat rock. He sits across from you. Still quiet, still waiting. Finally, he says, "He didn't cry for 2 days." You look up. He's not bragging. He's confessing. "I thought he was gone. I thought the world took him before he had a chance to claim it. You tighten your grip on the baby, but he wasn't gone. He shakes his head. No. You both fall silent again. The baby squirms. You shift him to nurse. There's no shame in the act. Not here. Not now. The man looks away out of respect, but not distance. It's a quiet protection, a shelter made of presence. You speak again. He was born during the ice storm. I used my coat as bedding. I wrapped his feet in prayer cloth. He turns back to you. His eyes soften. I remember. You sang to keep us warm. You nod. You hummed harmony. A pause. He smiles. Didn't know I had. You adjust the baby. He latches again. You watch him, feel his breath, and think of how close it all came to unraveling. And then you whisper what you haven't said aloud since he left. His name is Tohan. He nods. Still is. You look up. A question in your eyes. He answers it without you needing to ask. I never changed it. Not once. When folks asked, I just said his name. If they didn't understand it, they didn't need to. You close your eyes. The canyon wind curls gently between the rocks. You speak low. The town thought I buried him. He doesn't answer right away. Then says, I figured they needed to believe that. You nod. They grieved like he was theirs. A dry laugh escapes you. He chuckles once, then quiets. You meet his eyes and ask the question that has burned in your chest since you saw him crest the ridge. Why did you come back? He leans forward, not threatening, just close enough that the words can fall between you. Because I heard a voice in the canyon that didn't belong to the wind. You stare. He finishes. And because he cried loud enough for both of us. You feel tears. Not of grief, not yet joy. Just release. The baby sighs, finishes feeding, falls asleep again. You hold him a little longer. Then say the truth neither of you wanted to risk until now. I never stopped choosing you. He doesn't blink, doesn't flinch, just whispers, then I never left. You close your eyes and breathe. The wind moves on. The cabin still stands. You half expected it to be gone, burned, stripped, or swallowed by wind, but it waits for you like a breath held too long. Nestled between two cottonwoods, barely visible from the trail, it's the same crooked skeleton of logs and mud you once built by hand. The porch leans slightly. The shutter on the left window hangs askew, but the door is intact, and the quilt. You see it before anything else. Hung across the porch rail, sun-faded and weather-stiff, red thread on cream cotton, a single buffalo bead sewn into the corner, the one you added the night before you gave your son away. Your knees go soft. The man catches your elbow. You don't speak, neither does he. He helps you dismount. Rust stays where he is, watchful still. You step forward with the baby held close. He stirs, but does not cry. Your boots touch the porch. You reach for the quilt. Your fingers close around the corner with the bead. It's warm from the sun, and beneath the warmth the stitch still holds. You whisper, it waited. He stands behind you, says nothing. But his breath is steady. The door creaks as you push it open. Dust dances in the shafts of light. Everything's there. The tin kettle on the stove, the rocking chair by the hearth. The pile of firewood someone, him, must have restacked. He followed you here once. Now you've come home together. You walk the floor. Let the space recognize you again. You lift the wooden lid of the cradle. Empty, but clean, lined with dry moss and wool. You kiss your son's forehead, then lay him gently inside. He curls instinctively, fits the space like he never left. The man enters after you, removes his coat, hangs it on the same peg he used 3 winters ago. You turn. Your eyes meet. And there, without needing a single word, you both understand. This isn't survival anymore. This is the beginning of memory. You sit by the hearth. He kneels beside it, strikes flint. The fire crackles to life, soft and orange. It flickers against the walls, bringing movement to stillness. You say, they'll talk. He shrugs. They always did. You nod. They might come. He looks up. I'll be here. The words settle, simple, certain. You ask, "Will you stay?" He doesn't answer with a promise. He answers with an action, pulls a bundle from his saddlebag, wrapped in leather. He opens it. Inside, fabric, soft, deep indigo, worn but mended. He holds it out. A dress, Comanche stitched, long sleeves, beaded cuffs, your size. You stare at it, then touch it. He says, "You belong in both places." So does he. You whisper, "So do you." He nods once, slow, like it hurts but fits. You take the dress, fold it carefully, then speak. "If we raise him here, he'll need both names." He replies, "He already has them." Outside a bird cries. Wind slips between the cottonwoods. Inside, firelight touches the cradle. The baby sleeps, unbothered, whole. You run a hand across the floorboard scar where you once dropped a hot skillet. You touch the beam where he carved your initials with the edge of his knife. You reach into the drawer and find the sewing tin, rusted but intact. You pull thread, red. You hold it up. The man watches. You thread the needle. And with slow, careful stitches, begin a new piece. Not the quilt, something else. A sash, a name belt. It will take weeks, but it will hold the names, all of them, not side by side, braided, because nothing born of survival is ever flat. It has layers, and you've lived every one of them. He moves to the cradle, kneels, places his palm on the baby's back, then, without looking up, says softly, "I kept one thing." You glance over. He lifts a tiny object from his pocket, a carved rattle, hollowed bone and corn kernel, painted with ochre. You recognize it. You gasp. "I thought it burned." He shakes his head. "I carried it every mile." He sets it gently in the cradle. The baby shifts. His hand finds the rattle. Fingers curl. Grip. The man rises. Says, "He remembers." You smile. So do you. You wake before dawn. The fire's gone low, and the room breathes that soft winter hush, the kind that settles over wooden walls and lingers like memory. Your baby is still asleep in the cradle, fist curled around the rattle. You watch him in the blue light, and for a moment, time forgets how to move. Behind you, you hear the shift of leather, the man's boots on the floor. He doesn't speak. You don't need him to. He walks past, nods once, and opens the door. The wind outside smells like snow. He takes his rifle. Not to leave, to stand guard, because word travels faster than forgiveness, and you both know the ridge may not be finished with you. You follow him out with a blanket wrapped around your shoulders. The porch is covered in frost. Each nailhead glints silver. The sky is the color of breath. He leans against the rail. You stand beside him. Say, "They might come." He nods. "They might." A pause, then, "But you're not alone this time." You let those words fill the space between you, warm against the cold. You glance down at the bundle in your arms, still asleep, still safe. The weight of him, now a grounding stone, not a fear, but a reason. He opens a pouch, pulls out a small tin, coffee. You both sit. Watch the sun smear color over the far hills. You sip slowly. He watches the tree line, says, "I dreamt about the ridge last night." You look over. He continues, "In the dream, you never stopped walking, just kept going, rope and all, like you couldn't hear them." You ask, "And then?" He shrugs. "I called your name, but the wind swallowed it." You watch him a long moment, then say, "You did call, not then, but before." His eyes shift to you. You speak softly. "That day in the canyon, when I fell through the ice, I heard your voice before I saw you. I think it brought me back." He says nothing, but his hand tightens slightly on the tin cup. You add, "You don't have to be loud to be heard." He exhales slowly, then gestures to the trees, says, "Tracks." You follow his gaze. Hoof prints, fresh, Coming up from the south trail, he moves without rush. You shift the baby closer and return inside, placing him gently in the cradle. You wrap him twice, quilt and sash, and kiss his forehead. When you step back out, the man's already crouched near the brush, watching, listening. You kneel beside him. Two riders, unfamiliar. Not rushing, not cautious, just arriving. He whispers, "Don't move." You nod. The riders dismount. One tall, one slight. Hats pulled low. They walk slow, not armed, hands open. Then you hear it, a woman's voice. "Herschel said she'd be here." The smaller figure pushes back her hood. You know her, not from name, from face, from church benches and quilting bees, from the way she once looked away when you passed. Now she looks right at you, and in her eyes, regret, not shame. She says, "We came not for trouble, for thanks." You don't rise, but you don't hide either. The man stays between you and them, not blocking, just anchoring. The taller one speaks. "We heard what happened, and what didn't." A silence. Then he holds something out, a small cloth-wrapped bundle. You take it slowly. Unwrap it. Inside, a jar of blackberry jam, a single silver spoon, and a folded note. You read it aloud. For the child who cried louder than justice. You don't speak. Your hands shake, not from fear, from recognition. The woman steps forward. She says, "That baby changed something in us, some of us at least." Then quieter, "And we want to help." The man beside you doesn't speak, but his posture eases, just slightly. You nod once, say, "You can start by saying his name." She asks, "What is it?" You glance at the cradle inside, then answer, "Tohan." She tries it, soft, stumbling, but honest. And in that moment the ridge loses another stone, another weight lifted. They return 2 days later, not with rope, with bread, still warm, wrapped in wax paper, stitched with rough cotton thread, the kind used to mend aprons, not wounds. You hear the knock before you see them. Mid-morning, sun sharp, no wind. You step out holding Tohan. The woman from before stands on the porch with her hands full. Behind her, the tall man, her husband maybe, carries a small sack of oats and a basket of eggs. They don't ask to come in. They don't need to. You nod. They nod back. She holds out the loaf. "He's got good lungs," she says, smiling at Tohan. "I could hear him from the trail." You grin. "His father says it's his war cry." The tall man chuckles. "That boy'll call storms with that voice." You take the bread, still soft, still rising. A miracle, really. You say, "Thank you." The woman shrugs. "He earned it." Then she glances at the man beside you. He's just stepped out, rifle over shoulder, boots scuffed, eyes alert as ever. She hesitates, then speaks. "I was wrong." He tilts his head. She swallows. "I used to think loving someone from across the line made you a traitor." A pause. "Now I think it makes you brave." He says nothing, but his hand moves slightly, just enough to let you know he heard her. The man steps forward with the eggs. He offers them to your partner. Figured the boy might need more than milk soon. The eggs are wrapped in lamb's wool, not a single one broken. You nod. The man accepts them, no words. Just that quiet solidity he always carries. They leave without lingering. But when you close the door behind them, you notice something tucked under the edge of the porch rail, a carved spoon, whittled, smoothed by hand. Your initials on the handle, not your married initials, your name, your blood, the one they tried to hang. You pick it up, turn it over, and realize the town hasn't forgiven you. It's learning to remember you differently. Later that day, you and the man sit on the floor beside the fire. Tohan gurgles in the cradle. You break the bread together. It's dense, slightly sweet. Molasses, he says. You nod. You let those words fill the space between you, warm against the cold. You glance down at the bundle in your arms, still asleep, still safe. The weight of him now a grounding stone, not a fear, but a reason. He opens a pouch, pulls out a small tin. Coffee. You both sit. Watch the sun smear color over the far hills. You sip slowly. He watches the tree line, says, I dreamt about the ridge last night. You look over. He continues, in the dream, you never stopped walking, just kept going, rope and all, like you couldn't hear them. You ask, and then? He shrugs. I called your name, but the wind swallowed it. You watch him a long moment, then say, you did call, not then, but before. His eyes shift to you. You speak softly. That day in the canyon, when I fell through the ice, I heard your voice before I saw you. I think it brought me back. He says nothing, but his hand tightens slightly on the tin cup. You add, you don't have to be loud to be heard. He exhales slowly, then gestures to the trees, says, tracks. You follow his gaze. Hoof prints, fresh, coming up from the south trail. He moves without rush. You shift the baby closer and return inside, placing him gently in the cradle. You wrap him twice, quilt and sash, and kiss his forehead. When you step back out, the man's already crouched near the brush, watching, listening. You kneel beside him. Two riders, unfamiliar, not rushing, not cautious, just arriving. He whispers, don't move. You nod. The riders dismount, one tall, one slight, hats pulled low. They walk slow, not armed, hands open. Then you hear it, a woman's voice. Herschel said she'd be here. The smaller figure pushes back her hood. You know her, not from name, from face, from church benches and quilting bees, from the way she once looked away when you passed. Now she looks right at you, and in her eyes, regret, not shame. She says, we came not for trouble, for thanks. You don't rise, but you don't hide either. The man stays between you and them, not blocking, just anchoring. The taller one speaks. We heard what happened and what didn't. A silence. Then he holds something out. A small cloth-wrapped bundle. You take it slowly. Unwrap it. Inside, a jar of blackberry jam, a single silver spoon, and a folded note. You read it aloud. For the child who cried louder than justice. You don't speak. Your hands shake. Not from fear, from recognition. The woman steps forward. She says, that baby changed something in us, some of us at least. Then quieter, and we want to help. The man beside you doesn't speak, but his posture eases, just slightly. You nod once, say, you can start by saying his name. She asks, what is it? You glance at the cradle inside, then answer, Tohan. She tries it, soft, stumbling, but honest. And in that moment the ridge loses another stone, another weight lifted. They return 2 days later, not with rope, with bread, still warm, wrapped in wax paper, stitched with rough cotton thread, the kind used to mend aprons, not wounds. You hear the knock before you see them. Mid-morning, sun sharp, no wind. You step out holding Tohan. The woman from before stands on the porch with her hands full. Behind her, the tall man, her husband maybe, carries a small sack of oats and a basket of eggs. They don't ask to come in. They don't need to. You nod. They nod back. She holds out the loaf. "He's got good lungs," she says, smiling at Tohan. "I could hear him from the trail." You grin. His father says it's his war cry. The tall man chuckles. That boy'll call storms with that voice. You take the bread, still soft, still rising. A miracle, really. You say, "Thank you." The woman shrugs. He earned it. Then she glances at the man beside you. He's just stepped out, rifle over shoulder, boots scuffed, eyes alert as ever. She hesitates, then speaks. "I was wrong." He tilts his head. She swallows. "I used to think loving someone from across the line made you a traitor." A pause. "Now I think it makes you brave." He says nothing, but his hand moves slightly, just enough to let you know he heard her. The man steps forward with the eggs. He offers them to your partner. "Figured the boy might need more than milk soon." The eggs are wrapped in lamb's wool, not a single one broken. You nod. The man accepts them, no words. Just that quiet solidity he always carries. They leave without lingering, but when you close the door behind them, you notice something tucked under the edge of the porch rail, a carved spoon, whittled, smoothed by hand. Your initials on the handle, not your married initials, your name, your blood, the one they tried to hang. You pick it up, turn it over, and realize the town hasn't forgiven you. It's learning to remember you differently. Later that day, you and the man sit on the floor beside the fire. Tohan gurgles in the cradle. You break the bread together. It's dense, slightly sweet. "Molasses," he says. You nod. You smear it with jam from the other gift. Eat slowly. He leans back, eyes on the fire. Then, out of nowhere, he says, "Do you think they'll ever ask about his name?" You glance over. They already have. He waits. You continue. "They ask quiet, like they're afraid to touch it." He says, "Maybe they are." You finish your slice, brush crumbs from your lap, then say, "They should be." He laughs softly. Tohan stirs, kicks his feet. You reach down, tap his toes. "Careful, little one," you murmur. "This world's made of names, and none of them are harmless." The man watches you, then stands, crosses the room, opens the drawer, returns with something folded, canvas. He lays it out. It's an old flag, not American, not Comanche, something in between, a patchwork of both, stars and thunderbirds, red stripes and horsehair fringe. You touch it, ask, "Where did this come from?" He says, "My mother." You look up. His eyes are clouded, not with sorrow, with weight. "She made it before the war," he says. "Said we'd need it one day." You unfold it fully. It's beautiful, a contradiction in cloth. You whisper, "Will they ever understand?" He kneels, lays a hand on the baby's back. "They don't have to. We do." Outside the wind returns, gentle, not angry, like a song that remembers itself. You take the flag, fold it again, set it beside the cradle. Tohan stares at it like he knows, like he recognizes the story woven in. He coos. You smile, say softly, "We'll tell him everything." The man replies, "He'll carry all of it." The first snow comes late, mid-December, after weeks of dry air and false signals. It arrives silent and sure. No warning, no wind, just flakes drifting down like forgotten feathers. You're out behind the cabin when it starts. Chopping kindling, listening to Tohan babble to himself from the cradle you set on the porch. The man is stringing a snare line just beyond the tree line. He glances up, catches your eye. Snow lands in his hair, stays there. You smile. Because somehow, he does too. Later, you gather around the fire. You, him, and the child between you. Arms, warmth, the low crackle of split cedar. Tohan is learning to sit, topples often, laughs more. You've started sewing again. The quilt, yes. But also clothes, small tunics with room to grow. A sash for the man with buffalo fringe stitched in spirals. He wears it without ceremony, like it's always belonged there. On quiet nights you speak of spring, of what to plant, where to build a second shelter, whether to teach Tohan to ride or walk first. But under the talk, under every soft word, lies a truth you don't name. The ridge may call again. People forget easy, even gratitude, even miracles. So you prepare. You store roots, dry meat, weave baskets to hang from the rafters, and one morning he brings you a wrapped bundle. Inside, 3 books, sewn spines, worn leather. One's a Comanche prayer journal, one's your mother's Psalms, the third blank. He says, "For what comes next?" You run your fingers along the edges, whisper, "What do we write?" He looks at the child, then at you, and says, "What they wouldn't." You press your lips together, then smile, and set the books beside the fire. Tohan fusses. He's teething now, gnaws at everything, cries when the wind howls too loud. But when you hum the song, your song, he settles, always. One night as the storm gathers, you hear footsteps outside. He's already at the door, rifle in hand. You place a hand on his arm, he hesitates, opens it slow. Just the wind, and a bundle on the step, not food, not letters. Fabric, a child's bonnet faded pink, inside it a single note, 4 words. She lived, so can we. You hold it for a long time. Later, you hang the bonnet by the fire. He says nothing, just watches. Then that same night, you begin to tell Tohan the story. Not all of it, just the beginning. How he came into a world that didn't want him loud. How he cried anyway, and how that cry called back the one who'd never truly left. You pause. Look at the man. He leans forward, adds one line, and how your mother never bent, not even at the rope. You meet his eyes, say softly, and how your father rode through fire. Tohan gurgles, and the storm presses against the cabin, but inside it's warm, a hush, a history folding into breath. The child says your name for the first time on a Sunday, not in English, not fully. It comes like a hum caught in his throat, a crooked shape of sound formed while chasing chickens through snow. You freeze when you hear it. You kneel beside him, ask him to say it again. He looks up, cheeks pink with cold, and grins. Ma, ya. You blink. It isn't Ma. It isn't Mama. It's the word his father taught him in Comanche. Ma'aya, mother. You pull him close. He squeals, wriggling against your arms, and says it again. Ma-ya. His father hears it from the barn. He walks toward you slowly, careful not to intrude on the moment, but you look up, meet his eyes. He smiles, says nothing. But you see it, the pride, the reverence, the knowing that a name once spoken becomes a root. Later that day you light a candle at dusk. Place it in the windowsill. He asks why. You say, "For those who might be trying to come home." Tohan climbs onto your lap, small fingers exploring the folds of your skirt. You whisper, "Even if they don't know, they're welcome." That night, you dream of the ridge, but this time the rope is gone, and in its place, a banner made of patchwork cloth, names stitched side by side. Tohan, Maya, two others not yet known. You wake with tears on your cheeks, but they're clean. You rise, step outside. The stars are sharp above the snow. He follows you out, arms wrapped in a wool coat, and brings the quilt. You sit together on the porch. Tohan nestled between you, already drifting back to sleep. He says, "What did you dream?" You tell him. He nods once, then reaches into his coat, hands you something round, cool, small. It's a carved stone, polished, with the shape of a thunderbird etched on one side, your name on the other. He says, "I made it while you were sleeping." You whisper, "Why?" He shrugs, "Because stories need anchors." You press it to your palm. It's heavier than it looks. He continues, "You were almost gone, but he called you back, and now you call others." You don't answer right away. Instead, you lean your head against his shoulder. He shifts, allows it. The quilt wraps tighter. The wind sighs. You say softly, "Maybe someday we'll take him there." He says, "To the ridge?" You nod. "Let him see where names are tested." He smiles. "Where cries echo louder than guns." You chuckle. But it fades quick, because you remember, you always will. But you don't let it win, not tonight. Instead you whisper, "We'll show him where we bled, and where we sang." Tohan stirs. You hold him close. He mumbles in his sleep, soft and warm, "Ma, ya." The stone is still in your hand. You close your fingers around it, and the fire inside doesn't flicker, it grows. Spring arrives in soft surprises. The first green shoots push through frozen earth behind the cabin, near where you buried the old quilt scraps. Tohan discovers them before you do, kneeling, poking with one chubby finger, declaring them sleepy leaves. You kneel beside him, brush frost off a blade of grass, and feel your own roots shift, not just in the soil, in your ribs, in the way your breath catches a second longer before release. The man plants a line of beans with methodical care. He uses his father's knife, its hilt wrapped in sinew. You watch him press the seeds into dark soil, then cover them gently like prayers. Tohan mimics him, poking at dirt, whispering nonsense that sounds like both of your languages braided into a child's gospel. Later, you find your old ledger book and begin writing again. Not letters, not sermons, just memories. You sketch Tohan's first steps, the way he shrieked with joy when he reached the porch, the way his father dropped the bucket mid-well haul and ran to catch him, laughing, loud and without shame. You draw the shape of the spoon left by the townsfolk. You trace the banner from your dream. You stitch it all in ink, because stories don't start from silence. They bloom from it. One day, while gathering kindling, you hear a sound like hooves, but slower, clumsy. You turn. It's Tohan. He's draped your shawl around his shoulders and tied two small sticks to his boots. Pretending to ride, he neighs, gallops, then pauses, looks at you, and says, "I ride like Papa." You nod. You do. He smiles. Then, out of nowhere, he asks, "Was I always here?" You freeze, kneel, and answer the only way truth allows. "You were gone, but not lost." He frowns, confused. You continue. "We gave you away to keep you, and the world brought you back when it was ready." He processes. then says, "Like seeds." You blink. "Yes, like seeds." He grins. "Then I'm a seed that came back." You laugh. Pull him close. He whispers, "I remember the stars." You believe him. You always have. That night the man carves a small flute. He shows Tohan how to blow through it. It sounds like a bird learning to sing. You hum along low and steady, a harmony only the fire understands. The next day you find the first visitor of spring waiting by the porch. Not a person, a box, small wooden, wrapped in oilskin. You open it slowly. Inside, 4 objects. A folded piece of linen embroidered with your name, a newspaper clipping, charges dismissed after testimony from unnamed witness, a strip of red thread wound into a loop, and a note. In simple hand, for what the court could not name, the land remembers. You hold the thread, slide it onto your finger, then close the box. You don't tell the man immediately. You wait until the evening when the light softens and the stories feel less heavy. You hand him the box. He opens it, takes each item in silence. When he finishes, he asks, "Do you believe them?" You shake your head. Then say, "But I believe in what they gave." You both sit with that. Let it settle. Later, you pin the red loop to the wall above the cradle. Tohan asks what it is. You reply, "A promise that even silence leaves signs." He nods, then adds, "And you left thread everywhere." You smile, touch his hair, say, "So you'd find your way." The wind rises outside, soft, calling nothing, just remembering. The first time someone asks you to speak in town, you say no. The letter comes folded in quarters, tucked into a sack of flour, delivered by the same woman who once whispered prayers outside your cell. You unfold it slowly. It's from the teacher, a new one, young. She writes, "We're telling the children how the ridge changed, but they need to hear it from you." Your hands go still. The baby fusses nearby. Not a baby anymore, really. Tohan toddles through the doorway, dragging a wooden horse carved from the leftover beam of the gallows. You run your fingers over the letter again. He sees your face, asks, "Is it bad?" You shake your head, say, "It's heavy." He thinks. Then, "Like the quilt?" You nod. Exactly like the quilt. That night, you tell the man. He listens, then says, "What would you say?" You answer, "That I didn't survive because they changed. I survived because I did." He nods. Then say that. You ask, "Would you come with me?" He doesn't answer, just starts packing the saddlebag. The morning you leave, Tohan helps you braid your hair. It's uneven, soft, filled with little leaves he finds funny. You don't correct him. You wear it like a crown. The town is quieter than you remember, not scared, not hostile, just watchful, as if everyone's waiting to see if the story was real. The sheriff meets you at the schoolhouse steps. He removes his hat. You both nod, nothing more. Inside, children sit cross-legged on the floor, their eyes wide. The teacher gestures toward the seat. You sit, you look at them, 30 or so. All shades, all shapes. You begin with a name, not yours, Tohan's. You speak it whole, both parts braided together. You explain why you chose it, what it meant to carry it into a world that tried to tear it in two. Then you tell them the rest, not the rope, not the scream, but the choice. The silence, the stitch. How a baby's cry can cut through a crowd louder than any sentence. How love, when it stays quiet too long, becomes mistaken for shame. You show them the thread loop. You hold it up, let it catch the light, and say this saved us more than law ever did. They listen. One girl whispers, "Can I learn that stitch?" You nod. Say, "I'll teach you." Afterward, the teacher thanks you, asks if you'll return. You don't promise, but you don't say no. Outside, Tohan runs between legs like a deer in spring. The man waits by the horses. You ride home quiet, but when you cross the ridge, something strange happens. A wind picks up, soft, circular, and in it you hear the faintest echo, not a voice, not a threat, a breath, like the land itself exhaling, forgiveness not given, but finally received. The fire pit you dig that evening is deeper than usual. Tohan watches, sitting cross-legged with a stone in each hand. He asks why it's bigger. You tell him the truth, because sometimes stories need more space to burn. He nods, though you can tell he doesn't fully understand yet. But he will. The man helps stack the wood, birch and juniper, dry enough to catch, fragrant enough to carry. You wait until the sun softens, until the land holds breath. Then you lay out the pieces. The quilt scrap from your sleeve, the old rope coil kept for reasons you never explained, the folded court letter with your name misspelled, and the empty cradle blanket, the one Tohan no longer fits. You arrange them with care, not because they deserve reverence, but because you do. He kneels beside you, strikes the flint, the spark leaps, the fire catches, and the past begins to curl inward. You sit beside it. Tohan climbs into your lap. You wrap him in your shawl, still stained from the last storm. He whispers, "Is it goodbye?" You answer, "It's a way through." His eyes reflect the flame. The man speaks. Fire doesn't erase. It reclaims. You nod and whisper the names out loud, all of them, yours, his, the ones you carried, the ones you buried, the ones that never left your skin. The names don't hurt like they used to. Now they feel like steps behind you. Still part of the path, but no longer the road ahead. Tohan hums the melody you taught him, soft, threadbare. It rises like smoke. The man joins in, not with words, with breath. And you realize something sacred is happening, not forgetting, not forgiving, but releasing. Later, when the fire dies down, you sift the ashes with your palm. You find the metal tip from the old needle, still whole. You hold it up. Tohan asks, "Can we keep it?" You nod, then say, "But not to sew." He asks, "Then why?" The man answers, "To remember the hand that held it." You place it in a small tin, wrap it in red thread, tuck it into the book you've been writing, and for the first time you feel it. The ache is gone, not replaced, just quiet. That night the moon rises full, the sky holds no clouds. You and the man sit side by side, backs against the cabin wall. Tohan sleeps inside, tangled in a blanket stitched with every scrap of who you've become. He says, "When we met, I thought you'd never speak to me." You smile. "I didn't plan to." He laughs, low, worn, true. You add, "But your silence was louder than any question." He turns, asks, "And now?" You look at the stars, then at him, then whisper, "Now your quiet is home." And it is, because home isn't the place where you started. It's where someone hears your name and doesn't flinch. The next visitor comes in spring's second bloom. Not a townsfolk, not a neighbor, a rider from the plains. You see him before he sees you, tall, wiry, shoulders marked with the wear of wind and story. He carries no rifle, just a satchel, and a single braid down his back, tipped in white stone. You recognize the braid first, then the eyes. He is kin to the man beside you, not brother, but close, blood by bond. You motion to the cabin, call gently for the man. He steps out slowly, eyes squinting into the morning, and freezes. The two men say nothing at first, then walk forward, hands open. They clasp arms, not with force, but weight. You hear one word pass between them, in Comanche. You don't know it, but you understand it. Later, they sit near the porch. The visitor pulls from his satchel a wrapped bundle, unfolds it. Inside, a woven sash, blue and red, marked with story symbols. You recognize the stitching. It matches the one the man wears on occasion, the one his mother made before the war. But this one is different. You lean closer. At its center is a single stitched line, your name, braided with tow hands. The man says nothing, but his eyes shimmer. He receives it with both hands, then turns to you, holds it out. You hesitate. He nods. You take it. The fabric is warm from travel, threaded with more than color, threaded with meaning. You fold it carefully, say softly, "Thank you." The visitor speaks, finally. Says, "She said if the child lived, the name must live too." You nod. Say nothing, because the truth is too wide for words. That evening, you lay the sash across Tohan's blanket. He reaches for it in his sleep. Fingers curl, hold. Outside, the visitor speaks with the man long after the fire dies. You listen from inside. Words rise and fall like wind song. You catch fragments. Land council, the children taken. Your woman stitched his name in 2 tongues. Then silence. Then one phrase, whispered clear. A voice louder than history. You hold your breath, not in fear, in awe. The next morning the visitor leaves before sunrise. He places a small object at the door. You find it after breakfast. It's a bone comb, carved, painted with ochre and ash. On its back the symbol for wind stopped, a Comanche blessing for a storm survived. You show it to the man. He touches it once, then presses it into your palm, says, "For the woman who stood still when the world tried to move past her." You don't cry. But you do hold it longer than necessary. That day, Tohan asks what it is. You tell him, then say, "It's how they say thank you without saying sorry." He nods, then says, "Then I'll make one for someone too." You ask who. He grins. "Maybe for the teacher. She makes me feel like my name fits." You smile. Because it does. Because he does. And because this land, after all it took, is starting to give something back. Summer deepens like a held breath. The days stretch long, and Tohan begins helping with chores in earnest. He carries water in small buckets, stacks firewood crooked but proud, shadows you with questions about bees, clouds, why pine cones fall closed. You answer all of them, even the ones that sting, because this is the season for remembering and teaching. The man builds a second shelter just past the tree line, not for storage, for gathering. You ask him once why. He replies, "Because the quilt can't cover everyone if we don't make room." You don't ask again. Instead, you help. You sand the beams, stitch curtains from old flour sacks, tie bundles of sage above each window, and when it's done, you invite the ones who had stayed silent before, not with words, with food. You bake corn bread, lay out blackberries on a cedar plank, brew coffee in the old tin kettle you once held like a weapon. They come, one by one, not all but enough. The teacher arrives with 2 girls and a book of sketches. The woman from the ridge brings a folded note from her daughter, who now sews names into napkins without flinching. The sheriff does not come, but he sends a jar of honey, tied with thread. That night, after the guests leave, you sit with the man by the fire. Tohan lies between you, half asleep, mumbling dreams. You whisper, "Did we change the town?" He answers, "No." Then adds, "We gave them a different story to tell." You nod and feel the truth of it settle, because stories don't erase pain. They carve space around it, make room for light to seep through. Later, you add a page to the ledger, a drawing of the shelter, each window glowing. Inside, shapes not defined, just presence. You label it, "When Silence Turned to Song." That same week, a letter arrives from further west, from a town neither of you has seen. It's addressed to all 3 names, yours, the man's, and Tohan's. Inside, an invitation to speak, to teach, to tell the story of how a name became louder than a verdict. You read it twice, then set it down. The man asks, "Will you go?" You think, then say, "Only if we all go." Tohan grins. "Do they have berries?" You laugh and reply, "Only one way to find out." That night you begin sewing again, not a quilt, a bag for the ledger, the sash, the comb, the rattle, the red thread, and the spoon. The symbols that outlived silence, that speak in your place when the words are too sharp to hold. You stitch until your fingers ache, then sleep and dream, not of rope, not of fire, but of a porch rail full of offerings, of Tohan riding toward a sunrise with both hands raised, of a voice behind him saying, "She came back, and she brought the story with her." The road west is longer than you remember, but then again you're no longer walking it alone. The wagon creaks with each turn, and Tohan counts the jolts out loud. 27, 28. Until sleep pulls him under like a slow river. Beside you, the man hums softly, a Comanche lullaby, one his mother used to sing. You hum with him, because it fits now like breath. The trail winds through cottonwood groves, past canyons shaped like folded hands, along streams that remember other names. You pause at each bend, not from weariness, from reverence. This land has carried so many stories. Today it carries yours. At the next town, no one knows your face, and yet they greet you kindly. The letter bearer meets you outside the meeting hall. You introduce yourself the old way, name, land, thread. She bows her head, then opens the door. Inside a circle, no podium, no stage, just people, waiting. You begin slow. You don't rush the names. You don't rush the silence either. You let it stretch, let it settle, then fill it with the only truth that ever mattered. I was hanged for loving someone you feared. And you pause. The room doesn't shift, it stills. Then you say, "And I lived because our child remembered how to cry." You see their hands tremble. You see one woman weep. You see a man close his eyes like he's letting go of something he held too long. You speak of red thread, of bone combs, of quilts that stitched names across shame. You speak of the ridge, not as a gallows, as a lesson. And when you finish, no one claps. They stand, quiet, each one lighting a candle from the person beside them. until the room flickers like a field of stars. That night, in the cabin lent to you, you watch Tohan trace the candlelight on the wall. He whispers, "They heard." You nod. "They did." He turns. "Will they remember?" You gather him close. Say, "They will, because we gave them something to carry." He presses his face to your chest, says nothing more. Outside, the man walks a quiet circle around the wagon, guarding not from danger, from forgetting. You write one last page in the ledger, a single line, in your hand, in Tohan's, and in his. It read, 3 names, 1 fire. You fold the page, press it between the covers, and lay it in the cradle Tohan once outgrew. Tomorrow you will ride east again, or maybe south, maybe nowhere. Because home is no longer a place behind you. It is wherever the story waits to be whispered. You whisper now to no one, to everyone, to the space that held you in silence for too long. You say, if you're listening out there, if your name has been torn in two, the thread's still here. Just reach. The candle burns low. Your hand finds his. You exhale, and the fire holds steady.